Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. People often say motivation doesn't last, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. Zig Ziglar, our guest today, founder of All Things Insurance Group, the one and only Pete Fournier, is back to talk about what it takes to start and continue to succeed in the insurance business. This idea of the tier one, starting from the bottom and building up. Thanks for coming back on the Culture Matters podcast, brother. I'm excited to dive into the values of what it takes to be successful in your craft.
Thanks for having me. As always, appreciate it.
Someone walks through the door, they're ready to go. The words are there, the energy's there. However, if they're like red flags or radar detection after a decade and a half plus of advising thousands and thousands of clients on what it takes to be successful for their wants and their needs, what are some red flags or misnomers that you think those that get excited about starting in the insurance business may not realize or can't easily conceptualize? You know, there are things that you very easily can pick up on. I don't know if that type of person is going to make it. Those aren't the values that line up.
Yeah, it's implementing. I ran some track in high school and I did distance and some hurdles and whatever. And you had high hurdles, right, for short sprints, 100-yard dash, high hurdles. The hurdles were like up to your chest. That's
Whoa.
what the Olympics, right? But then you had intermediate hurdles. If you're running a 400, the hurdles were lower. So we want them to be able to go the distance in our business. So ipso facto, when they come in the door, there are very small hurdles that they have to clear in order to prep for one larger ones, but also to prep for like the ease of this business after a while. Like I firmly believe you have to go through the mud and the muck for your first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. So that way it can become easier for you. If you just come out the gate and like your mentor is auto assigning you fucking 30 grand a month or whatever it is, you're never going to be able to get to the next level because you started at level three. You didn't even
Mm.
experience level one, two, or three, or two and a half. So, like we create very tiny, insignificant barriers, quote unquote, to allow them to learn and feel what it's like to push through some opposition, objection, and some hardship to then get to that next level and then subsequently get to the next level above that, above that, above that. I think too many agency owners, uplines, mentors, IMO owners are like, yo, get your license. We're going to teach you how to make 200 grand year one. Like, and then they get into this business and they're like, what do I do? Like deer in headlights type shit. You need a path. You need some steps, some
Mm.
succession planning to get them through like a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then boom, they're entrepreneurs, you know?
What value or values, like character traits, do you think help like temperamentally with objection, taking objection or uh, pushback?
You can really tell who's had a lot of shit handed to them throughout their life. And I'm not saying like you need unsuccessful parents to crush insurance. Like my parents did well when I was a little kid, and then they had hardships and blah blah. If you want to listen to that, go to like our first episode ever, right? But
Great episode.
you can tell the ones that are like, gimme, 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 or like, I can't do this, and they become whiny and disenfranchised and whatever right out the gate because I think a lot of stuff was given to them. Some of these people are maybe they got solid B pluses without even trying in high school and college. Maybe they were always good at track, always good at football. They didn't have to practice that hard. Or maybe mommy and daddy coddled the shit out of them. And it's not maybe necessarily financially, but they didn't have to take out the trash when they were kids. Or they didn't. And you can like in doing this for so long now, and I'm sure other sales careers are like this too from a management level, you can immediately characterize somebody by the way they act their first week or two here.
Hmm. How so?
Because I can tell, like, for one of our hurdles, let's say, is you got to do 30 fact finders in your first 45 days within your warm market. These are practice presentations. Now, statistically, I know that they're going to get 6 or 7 sales out of that 30, right? But it's the slogging of like, oh, I did 2 today. I'm going to go home. Or it's that phone weighs 1,000 pounds. I don't really want to call Uncle Jimmy, even though I know he's got insurance. Like maybe I'll just text him or whatever. And the ones that execute and come out the gate swinging, and they're like, I'm going to call mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin. It's not even about selling the client. It's about doing the job
Hmm.
starting day one, because you're going to be doing that with randos, random people off the street every day, arguably that you pay to market to. Why can't you practice with people you already know? Why is that so difficult? And if that's hard for you, you're not going to make it. It's impossible.
What type of skills does it take to do a fact finder?
Mm. You have to be like a couple episodes ago, teachable, coachable, and accountable. Teachable, I'm going to teach you the products, the scripting, etc., and you have to regurgitate it. Coachable, because like even for instance today, I heard some stuff on the phone. Someone was talking to their aunt or whatever, and I was like, "Ew, I would never say that." Even if it's my aunt versus a random prospect, like it's all the same thing. You got to develop the muscle memory, right? So you got to be able to take those critiques and accountable, because I can't sit there and make fact finder calls for you or fill out your damn fact finder for you. Like we make it as easy as humanly possible. And whether you want to do it tangibly on paper or digitally, we have both mediums. But
Hmm.
like you got to get through that process, because if you can't, you're not going to hold yourself accountable 2 weeks from now or 30 days from now or 6 months from now, when we're all running around like Looney Tunes and you're just sitting at your desk with your head against the wall. Like I'm not going to be keeping track of you like that. So all of a sudden, I'm going to wake up 90 days from now and be like, I wonder what the hell Jimmy's been up to. And Jimmy's done nothing. And then I got a shit can Jimmy. Like, we don't want that. So just do the task bestowed on you, because they're all there for a reason. Kids don't like doing homework in school. It's not the fact that they're doing the homework. It's one, teaching them responsibility of getting a task done. It's a little bit of self-learning. Hey, yes, you learned this concept in class. Now you're going to do 50 of these problems at home. And it's to show the teacher that they're actually paying attention, right? You ever sit next to the kid in class that got a 0 on their homework? Teachers don't like that shit because you didn't pay attention the whole time, right?
Hmm.
Well, those 3 factors bleed very well, at least into my sales space of insurance, because we need to make sure you're paying attention, regurgitating what I teach you, and that you're responsible enough to do the tasks at hand. Because why am I going to pay for your marketing if you can't even get through this task? You know? And this position, I can't say job, right? Because they're 1099 independent contractors. But at the end of the day, this position is a two-way trust street. You have to trust me that I know what the fuck I'm talking about, and that I'm teaching anything that I ever teach you is always going to work. And two, I have to trust you that you're actually going to do the shit that I'm paying you to do.
You mentioned paying attention, teachable or teachability, like
Mm-hmm.
being open to criticism and accountability.
Yeah, teachability, coachability, and accountability.
And in a sense, the the diligence it takes to do the fact finding, you liken that to the responsibility around homework.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's to learn how to learn, right? And learn how to position yourself. The art of sales, at least in the insurance aspect, is being able to ask enough questions and then shut up and listen to find a problem within the prospect's insurance portfolio, investment portfolio, whatever it is, right, that you're prospecting for, and then creating the solution for it. So with the fact finder, we're giving you the crutches, right? The handicap, the tricycle, the training wheels, in order to ask the most effective questions. So that way, after 30 of those or more, those are implanted in your brain. Now you can go out and talk to a random person in the airplane, at a restaurant, whatever, a lead that requested information, and you had that experience. So now your muscle memory is kicking in, asking the same deducive questions. So it's just training your brain, you know?
Mm, mm.
If you can't get through that, you can't do this business.
And yeah, if you were to come up with almost like the anti-values to fail and fail quickly.
It's a lot of the I don't know how I would put this in values, but like not questioning authority, but questioning like, well, why do I have to call mom and dad? Why do I have to talk to my brother? Like there's one thing with being inquisitive about the business, and I'm happy to entertain those questions. Well, you do this so you can practice to learn, right? That's what we tell them in the beginning. But you can tell some guys and gals after a week or 2 weeks, like, why do I have to do this? Johnny's got all the good leads. Can't I just have some of those? You're never going to work, bro. That's not how this works. Johnny did his fact finders. Now he's starting on the leads, and they're only good because Johnny's closing them because he went through the process that I taught him. He didn't
Yeah,
skip a step.
what is it about skipping a step that can just undermines the or dismantles the whole process?
A couple things. One, my approach in insurance in general is that Swiss Army knife approach. So if you don't start with the building blocks of life and health, you can't migrate to Medicare, to annuities, to business selling, to retirement planning strategies, to advanced markets, et cetera. You have to start with something. It's like learning how to read without learning your ABC song. It doesn't compute, right? So that's one. Number two is like you have to get more complicated in steps. If I taught you day one how to sell annuities and that's where you started, like the concept doesn't make sense because you need all these other facts and products and procedures in order to build up the solution of, let's say, an annuity product or an
Mm.
banking whole life or a max funded IUL. Like that just sounds like Greek to most of these people. Start with some term, start with whole life, start with universal life, start with basic health insurance, and build upon that. When you skip, you create holes in your process.
When it comes to being an advisor, how important in your estimation, is it to actually learn and understand as much as possible about the industry?
Because it's so important because the puzzles have to fit together, right? If I'm just going after high ticket annuity sales or large case design life insurance or something of that nature, you're not viewing their insurance portfolio as such. You're transactionally selling and you're trying to hit a grand slam every time. And these people might need help with health, Medicare, ancillary, life, etc. And you're not connecting the dots. I also do a lot of downplaying in terms of, let's say, selling, right? But really, it's strategy of listen, three of these products overlap. And we can kill all three birds with one product over here versus you having all three that you're paying for, and you're saving 40% by doing such, right? Just as an example, if I didn't start with the ABCs of insurance, my brain would never be able to do that.
Hmm. How quickly, within reason, can someone new in the business that's diligent, not entitled, responsible, paying attention, teachable, coachable, accountable, do the 30 fact finders?
I'm gonna say you got 45 days max. Like when I was first starting out, and I kind of stole the idea from a captive because look, you got to look at your competition every once in a while, and these companies have been around for 100 years. But I had to do a process of I needed 100 fact finders in my first 30 days. Like
Wow.
that's an insane ask, right? But two, we don't need that because we market for our agents. These are captives that don't believe in lead generation or anything like that, right? It's all warm market, word of mouth, referrals, etc. So they got to do more. I just want you to get the 30 under your belt, one a day, let's say for the next 30 working days, to feel what it feels like to go through the process that we go through 10 times a day when you're a full-time producer. Right? And to put some money in your pocket. Like all the time. If you do 30, we're getting six, no matter what. If you blow, you're getting six. You might get 15. You might sell half. Who knows? Right? But it's just the course of action to learn how to question, to learn the product comparison process, because we do the fact finders, we gather all the information, and then typically they come to me and they say, what would you do here? And it's a little bit of Socratic method. Well, what would you do? I wouldn't do that. I would do this, and here's why. And we come together with like a roadmap. It takes 5 minutes for each fact finder to deduce what needs to happen. And then they go back and pitch the solution. Hey, here's what I would do, and here's why. Here's what I would do, and here's why, et cetera, et cetera. That should be a month and a half max. And that's if you
Mm.
have 2 sits per fact finder. You know what I mean?
How long do you think it would take to do 1,000?
You can do 1,000 fact finders in a year.
How how close to mastery is someone that does that?
Oh my God. Yeah. I told someone, oh, today I was interviewing a kid that I was really impressed with coming from the solar space. And he asked me how many like chats or talk tos, like he didn't know the lingo, obviously, because he's not in the space yet. But he was like, how many people do you have to talk to be proficient in whatever, in insurance?
Good question.
And my answer was, I think it's 100 presentations per category of insurance. So if you could get 100 term presentations, 100 IULs, 100 whole lives, 100 Medicare sup, 100 Med Advantage, et cetera, when you see 100 presentations in each product category, you know every rebuttal, every objection, every comparison between products. You know how to pitch it effectively and efficiently. And most importantly, you know how to do the paperwork without looking like an asshole. Right? I could fly through an app in 20 minutes. You don't want to be sitting there keystroking for an hour and a half with a prospect sitting staring at you. You know what I mean? So 100 in each category, and arguably there might be 10 or 12 categories to go through. So you need 1,200 presentations.
Confucius said, "Man who chases two rabbits
Yes.
catches none."
Uh-huh.
How, with the tiers and the training and your path to mastery, is ATIG overcoming that adage?
Because based
Because
on the tier, yeah, it's a great question. Based on the tier system, there's always overlap. So if we start them in the final expense market, let's say, right, or we start them with their fact finders and then leads. So warm market traditionally, a lot of term, a lot of whole life, a lot of like basic general insurance. Then we move them towards final expense because it's the lowest barrier to entry to be able to sell something. It's a very simple product and it's for 55 to 85-year-olds. Once they do that 100 times, we incorporate Medicare. Almost every final expense prospect also has some sort of Medicare need. So they overlap. Now you're going into a presentation selling 2 products, not one, right? Or 2 solutions. Maybe they don't need final expense, but they need Medicare or vice versa, right? So you're doing the end all be all. Then migrate into annuities. The same prospect that needs final expense, that needs Medicare, also might need an annuity. Now you're handling the trifecta of the senior market. Then, depending on where you want to go, we can incorporate advanced market selling, B2B, et cetera. But it's constant building blocks, or I think of it as a Venn diagram. ATIG's in the middle circle, and there's maybe 6, 7, 8 insurance circles overlapping with ATIG. And we want you to be able to overlap your entire solution for that
Mm.
prospect.
Mm. How if you were starting the business all over today, how excited would you be or not to start at tier one based on everything that's going on in macro of our
Oh,
culture and the
I'd be
industry's evolution over the last 20 years?
I'd be so pumped for a couple different reasons. One, not like I needed it, but I didn't get paid hourly. Like we pay hourly plus commission for interns and for newer agents that are, quote unquote captive with us for a little while. And so we pay 25 an hour plus 10% comp, and then it increases based on that. So having that base to learn is unheard of in most insurance spaces. It's all commission only, which is crazy. Also, when I first started, everything was on paper. You had stacks of paper 3 inches thick for one prospect, all wet signatures. I had to fly all over the frigging country to find leads and prospects and bring stacks of applications. Now I
Hmm.
can hop on a Zoom for 15 minutes and close a deal. Like, what? The barrier to entry is so low, and the amount of friction to do business is so low. It's insane right now, and this is just insurance as a whole. Not to mention coming to ATIG, our whole mission statement is eliminating the friction of clients and agents doing business together because we provide all the solutions. So like, and it's cool to see these kids too that I get from the college that are interns or just going into their first year. Like they're fired up, and they should be. I don't mean that you need hurdles like you got to start out making 30 grand. So that way you can make 50. So that way you can make 70. I don't believe in that. You can make 150 here your first year if you do what you're told, right? But it's those steps to learn the exact process in order to take home that much money.
Does the younger generation have work ethic?
Surprisingly, yeah. I always thought the antithesis of I should get some 30-year-olds, some 40-year-olds, hell, 50-year-olds. They got a mortgage, they got 4 kids, they're looking at college planning, they're going to be fired up and scared, and they need to sell to make money. You can't even fathom how many uber lazy people there are in this country that have all these responsibilities and still do nothing about it. These kids, their bills are like $800 a month, and they're like, I want to make 25 G's. And you're like, where the fuck is that coming from? But it's cool to see like they want it. And it's even cooler because we give them the opportunity that if they do the process, they get such a strong taste in their first 60 to 90 days of what it's like to actually make real money. They get addicted. Like one of our interns was like, this is like friggin' heroin. Not like I know what that is, but like I could imagine this is the rush you get when you like do drugs. And I was like, yeah, it's adrenaline from selling shit and making a solid commission in doing so. Like that's how you should feel. It doesn't take all month to make 10 grand. Could take a day. Who knows? But you got to
What
follow.
what impacts, even anecdotally, have you seen the work that your company does with clients have on their lives?
Oh man, I was getting texts. I mean, we all know, I don't know what day this is going to air, but it's April 8th right now, right? Market's in the shitter. And regardless of your political affiliation, like it's just down. And we know why it's happening, right? For the most part, we're not sheep, but it's down. I got clients coming out the yin yang texting me, being like, thank you so much for doing that for me. Thanks for having your team call me a billion times because I didn't want to take the call. Thanks for selling me XYZ product, whatever, because none of our clients are losing any money. I'm not saying like an annuity or a fixed rate account is the end all be all, but anything that we have out there, no one lost a cent. So that's some powerful shit. And on the lower complicated stuff, anytime we get a death claim, a disability claim, a long term care claim, like we did that. And we ensured that the people had the money in order to pay for whatever emergency occurred. Like that's a good feeling. We're not selling paperweights and Ferraris.
Do people actually use this stuff? They die and they need that?
Oh, all day, all day and every day. And it's sad.
I asked that seriously because I don't think it's something we think about.
Yeah, it's not. Like everything that we're selling right now is in theory, right? When we die, when we do this, 36 years old, I don't want to talk about death, right? Or think about it, but like ultimately, when we go, this stuff's going to pay out. Even sooner, when you retire, this thing is going to do X. I've had clients reach out to me that have been my clients for like a decade, and they're finally ready to take lifetime income on their annuity, and it's paying them like 85 grand a year for the rest of their life, and they turned it on and they were like, holy shit, it works. And you're like, yeah, duh, like I know that. But they're like
Wow.
surprised, like, oh my God, we talked a decade ago. Here's the time. Let's turn it on. Oh, it is doing what you told me it was going to do. Wow. Holy shit. You
What do
know?
they, yeah, how does that feel?
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome. And it's even more awesome when you set up a plan for them and now they have the peace of mind, whatever the plan is, whether it's life insurance, health insurance, Medicare, retirement planning, annuities, etc. They can just carry on their life. Like they don't have to worry about all these moving parts. That's what I get paid handsomely to do. Like it's not their responsibility, especially when you're retired. This shit's a full-time job. Let us worry about it. And arguably, the less stress that some of these people have in their retiree years, the longer they're going to live. So they can enjoy it more, you know?
Yeah.
Let us
Hmm.
take care of that for you.
If there's one word that describes the most successful, the highest likelihood of succeeding, I'm new in the business. I have 30 fact finders in front of me. What's the word? I need
Hungry.
that body.
Hunger. If you don't come into this space, especially the ATIG, where you don't come into this space with hunger, like you are starving for something, whatever that why is. Yes, I want to make a shit ton of money, but why? Why are you hungry for it? Why do you want the opportunity? If you don't have that, you'll never make it. We could teach you everything else. I can't force you to be starving.
And if you're not, then people might not have that health insurance when the loved one passes away.
Correct.
If you're
Empathy.
not, then they might not have that 85,000 for life. It's interesting that thought kind of went, if so, just because I maybe felt you said something earlier about somebody doing two fact finders and going home.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do an extra one. That one could have been somebody's little 8-year-old girl who doesn't have life insurance
Yeah.
benefit. Their father passed away randomly in a whatever, you know, on their 8-year-old birthday because somebody wasn't hungry to work.
Yeah, empathy is a powerful tool when it's a positive, but it can be a super hindrance, especially in this business. Like during the quote unquote interview process, if you say your sole goal to enter this business is to help people, you will fail
What
because
do you, why?
you can't have that much empathy because the helping people for some reason in the human's brain thinks helping people is not selling them, not forcing them to buy this life insurance policy, not forcing them to save for retirement, not forcing them because we everybody's on a teeter totter in our business. Like no one's really banging down the door to buy life insurance, and no one's really like, absolutely not. I would never buy this shit because everybody needs it. Everybody's on the fence. It's your
Mm.
job to push them over to purchase, right? You're not force feeding it down their throat, but like there's some sales acumen. And if you don't close them, what happens to their family? So don't say you want to come in and help people because a lot of that times that bestows a negative attitude on the seller, right? Oh, I'm going to help them. I don't want to push them into it. It'll be fine. No, you're doing them worse, a true disservice by not forcing them to take
Do you see
action.
that psychologically that can actually lead to the salesperson getting convinced by the person that's anxious and afraid not to do something?
Oh, 100%. A sales made
That's
on
what you
every
need.
call. Yeah.
But there's an interesting uh, irony that if the individual is hungry to make their life better, they inadvertently help other people when they need it most.
It's like a rising tide. You know, you're hungry, you need money, you got holes in your shoes, like whatever. You're going to not force feed these people because we're going to teach how to do it morally and ethically, but you will have such a conviction to get them to make a decision today. And if it's yes or no, at least they decided. There's no, I want to think about it. I'm going to talk to the tooth fairy, whatever. Like forcing a decision
Yeah, it's
is
so
super
interesting.
important.
The think about it makes me think, you know how they say people have regrets on their deathbed,
Yep.
it's like at least I'd have pride that I said no.
Right.
But if I said I have to think about it, I might be like really thinking about that at the end of my life. Like, oh, I could have said it versus yet, yes, no, at least they could have the pride to say, I didn't say, I didn't want that life insurance. I'm thinking about the person that just got mauled by a bear and they're still on their last breath. Man, I shouldn't have said I had to think about it
Yeah.
because now their kids don't have like life insurance. But at least if they said no and you did everything that you could, or if they said yes, be like, oh, how good would that be to at least for that person to think,
4 times in my career, I can remember them and where they were. I either knocked a lead, called a lead, whatever. I got in touch with them. I let them off the hook. This was early on, right? And they died before meeting number two. 4 times. So like what happens? Like I failed because I couldn't get them to execute on a decision. I either need like a fuck you, get out of my house, or I need a yes. Either way, I don't care. It's ultimately your decision, but I can't let you think about it. That's ridiculous.
if you're listening to this podcast, share this with somebody that needs a wake up call. They've been thinking about whatever it is for too long, or someone that you know that is hungry and they want to get in a career that where they can actually help people while as a consequence of focusing on improving their life and getting their act together. Pete, you're the man. Where can people follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at Peter J. Fournier, literally anywhere. And I answer all my own shit. So hit me up.
Please share this with someone that needs to hear it. Leave us a review of the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time.